Did you know the 1970s were one of the boldest decades in American car design? From massive land yachts dripping in chrome to muscle-bound coupes with attitude. American automakers didn't just build cars, they crafted rolling statements of power, luxury, and flair. Some of these machines are now forgotten, left behind as trends shifted, but today, we're bringing them back into the spotlight. These are 12 forgotten beauties of the 70s. American cars at their stylish peak. Buckle up, it's about to get groovy. 1970 Buick GS455 Stage 1. Let's kick things off with a brute in a tuxedo. The 1970 Buick GS455 Stage 1. From the outside, it looked like something a dentist might drive to the country club, but underneath that chrome-accented, well-mannered exterior was a monster with a very dirty secret. This thing packed a 455 cubic inch V8 and cranked out an earth-shaking 510 foot-pounds of torque, the highest of any American production car in 1970. Let that sink in. Not the Chevelle SS, not the Hemi Cuda. This gentleman from Buick was secretly the strongest man in the room, and probably the smoothest talker too. But here's the wild part. It didn't shout about it. No giant hood scoops or over-the-top stripes. It just quietly walked up to the spotlight, grinned at the Mustang next to it, and left it gasping in a cloud of tire smoke and shame. Fun fact? This was one of the few muscle cars that came fully loaded. We're talking power windows, air conditioning, plush seats. You could blast down the strip in under 14 seconds and still keep your date's hair from frizzing. In fact, some owners called it the bedroom muscle car because it was fast, strong, and smooth where it mattered. Grandma may have approved, but Grandpa probably used it to get her in the first place. 1976 Cadillac Elorado convertible. Now, let's move away from beast to beauty, or maybe a bit of both. The 1976 Cadillac Elorado convertible was the final flourish of American land yacht glory. Big? Try 18.7 feet long. Bold? It had fender skirts, opera lights, and more chrome than a Vegas nightclub. And beautiful, in a way only 1970s luxury excess could be. But this wasn't just another couch on wheels. It had a serious heart. Under the hood lurked an 8.2-liter V8, still the largest displacement engine ever put into a production passenger car. That's not just big, that's ridiculously big. It made about 190 horsepower, but with over 500 foot-pounds of torque. It could haul its massive body down the road with surprising grace. Cadillac ran ads calling it the last American convertible, playing up the idea that safety regulations were killing the drop top. It wasn't true. Convertibles kept coming, but the marketing stunt worked. Buyers lined up, many thinking they were getting a piece of American history. Fun fact, when you dropped the top and stretched out across that 8-foot-long bench seat, it basically became a mobile love lounge. Rumor has it more than a few children were conceived in the back of one of these floating bedrooms. After all, what better way to celebrate freedom than under the stars on 15-inch white walls? 1977 to 1979, Lincoln Continental Mark V. If the Cadillac Eldorado was big and bold, the Lincoln Continental Mark V was all that, and then some. This was the kind of car you drove when you wanted people to know you had arrived. It stretched almost 19 feet long, had sharp body lines, a massive grille, and pop-up headlights that looked like they were winking at you. The hood? So long you could serve lunch on it. Inside, it was all about comfort and class. Think plush leather seats with diamond stitching, real wood trim, thick carpeting, and a Cartier clock on the dashboard. Yes, that Cartier. This car wasn't built for speed. It was built to glide like a luxury boat on wheels. And here's the part that made it even more special. Lincoln offered designer editions with fashion icons like Bill Blass, Givenchy, and Pucci. Their versions came with fancy two-tone paint, special emblems, and color-matched interiors. Some even came with matching luggage because, hey, your suitcase deserved style too. Fun fact, in 1978 alone, Lincoln sold over 228,000 Mark Vs, making it one of the most successful luxury coupes of the decade. It wasn't fast, but it made you feel like a king every time you drove it. Or just sat in the driveway admiring it. 1973 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SD455. After all that luxury, let's turn up the heat. If the Lincoln Mark V was about relaxing, the 1973 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SD455 was about raising hell. You've probably seen the regular Trans Am in movies like Smokey and the Bandit, black paint, gold trim, and that giant bird on the hood. But the 1973 SD455 was something special. It came with a Super Duty 455 cubic inch V8, a race engine in disguise. Only around 252 were built, making it one of the rarest and most powerful Trans Ams ever made. Officially, Pontiac said it made 290 horsepower, but that number was low on purpose. The truth? It was a lot faster than the papers claimed. Back in the day, muscle cars were getting choked by new emissions laws and rising insurance costs, so Pontiac got clever, quietly giving drivers a real powerhouse while keeping the numbers friendly for the suits. This car wasn't just fast. It looked fast, flared fenders, deep scoops, and an attitude that said, "Let's race." It was the perfect mix of style and speed, and it turned heads wherever it went. Fun fact, many people didn't even know what the SD badge meant when they bought one, but collectors today sure do. If you find one of these rare birds, don't let it fly away. 1970 Chevrolet Camaro RS Z28. By 1970, Chevrolet gave the Camaro a total makeover, and wow, did it pay off. The second generation Camaro rolled in with a lower, wider stance and curves that looked more Italian than American, and if you wanted the best of both style and performance, the RS Z28 combo was the sweet spot. The RS Rally Sport package added those cool split front bumpers, hidden windshield wipers, and round parking lights tucked into a sharp new grille. Add the Z28 package and you got a high-revving 350 cubic inch small block V8 that made up to 360 horsepower with solid lifters and a factory polycarb. This wasn't just a pretty face, it could move. Fun fact, the Camaro's design was inspired by the Ferrari 250 GTO, especially in the way the fenders flared out like muscular shoulders. Chevy wanted a car that looked fast, standing still, and they nailed it. Some even called it the poor man's Ferrari, though once the engine fired up, it didn't sound poor at all. While insurance and emissions laws would soon hit hard, the 1970 RS Z28 was one of the last Camaros to truly let loose. A mix of American muscle and European flair, it was the kind of car that made you feel like a movie star, especially if you were cruising with the windows down and your arm hanging out the side. 1971 Oldsmobile Toronado. And now, let's get a little weird, in a good way. The 1971 Oldsmobile Toronado wasn't your average muscle car or cruiser, it was a bold experiment. A front-wheel drive heavyweight with luxury styling and a big block heart. This second-gen Toronado came with a massive 455 cubic inch V8 under the hood, powering the front wheels, something almost no one else was doing at the time. That alone made it special, but Oldsmobile didn't stop there. With its long, smooth hood, hidden headlights, and turbine-style wheels, the Toronado looked like it came from the future, or at least from a 1970s sci-fi movie set. Step inside and things got even wilder. The dashboard looked like a control panel from a spaceship, and the front-wheel drive setup allowed for a completely flat floor. No hump in the middle. It was weird, yes, but wonderfully practical. Fun fact, the Toronado was one of the first American cars to offer anti-lock brakes, which GM called Max Track. That's right. While it looked like a giant rolling couch, it had safety tech that was way ahead of its time. The Toronado may not have been a street racer, but it was bold, unique, and surprisingly clever. It dared to be different, and that's why we still remember it today. 1971 Chrysler Imperial LeBaron. If the Lincoln Mark V was big, the 1971 Chrysler Imperial LeBaron said, "Hold my cigar." This car wasn't just long, it was 19.5 feet of rolling attitude. Bigger than a Lincoln, flashier than a Cadillac, and with more chrome than both combined. The Imperial LeBaron wasn't built to blend in. It was Chrysler's way of saying, we can out-luxury anyone. The front grille looked like a bank vault door. The suicide-length doors were nearly as long as an entire compact car, and the rear fender skirts gave it the profile of a royal barge. If the Eldorado was stylish and the Mark V was elegant, the Imperial was just plain bossy. It didn't ask for attention, it demanded it. Inside, it was loaded with soft vinyl, thick carpeting, and buttons that looked like they belonged in a private jet. And the steering wheel rim thicker than the handlebars on some motorcycles, because Chrysler figured if you were commanding a land yacht, you deserved something that felt like a ship's wheel. Fun fact, it even had a hidden gas cap behind the left taillight, because finding where to fuel up a car this big was like hunting for buried treasure. The LeBaron may not have sold in huge numbers, but when it pulled up next to a Lincoln or Cadillac, you knew who was in charge. 1974 AMC Javelin AMX. Now, let's swing back to something leaner and meaner. The 1974 AMC Javelin AMX wasn't the biggest, flashiest, or most expensive, but it had more attitude than a Camaro and Mustang combined. With its wide flared fenders, long hood, and fast back rear, the Javelin looked aggressive even standing still. Unlike the Camaro RS Z28 or Trans Am SD455, it came from AMC, the underdog brand that refused to play by Detroit's usual rules. And while it didn't move as many units as the big boys, what it lacked in sales, it made up for in raw presence. The AMX trim brought serious heat to the table, with 401 cubic inches of V8 muscle, tuned suspension, and bold graphics. It had real Trans Am racing history behind it too. AMC actually won the championship in 1971 with driver Mark Donohue. That gave the Javelin street cred, even if it didn't have a giant hood bird like the Pontiac or Ferrari-inspired curves like the Camaro. Fun fact, the Alabama State Troopers picked the Javelin AMX for their high-speed pursuit cars. Why? Because it was fast, it handled well, and it scared the heck out of speeders. That's right, this pony car didn't just race on tracks, it chased down trouble on the highway. The Javelin AMX was proof that style, performance, and rebellion didn't always come from the big three. Sometimes, the coolest car in the lot came from the little guy with a big engine and something to prove. 1971 Ford Thunderbird, Bunky Nudson Edition. The name might be a mouthful, but so is the car. The 1971 Ford Thunderbird, shaped by car executive Bunky Nudson, was a bold change from the Thunderbirds of the past. This wasn't a small, sporty car anymore. It was big, long, and full of attitude. The front looked sharp and serious, kind of like a bird ready to peck, and it had opera windows on the sides that didn't do much, but they sure looked fancy. With thick chrome all around and a soft vinyl roof, it was more about luxury and style than going fast. Compared to something like a Camaro Z28, which was built for speed, this Thunderbird was made for cruising and comfort. It was the kind of car you'd wear sunglasses in, even at night. Just roll down the windows, play some smooth music, and enjoy the ride. Fun fact, the back of the car was so flat, people joked you could eat a full meal on it. And knowing the 70s, someone probably did. Maybe even with a date and some disco playing in the background. 1973 Dodge Charger SE Braum. By 1973, the Dodge Charger had changed a lot. The earlier models from the late 60s were fast and wild, but the Charger SE Braum took a different path. It kept the name, but it now had more chrome, a padded roof, and a smoother shape. It was built more for comfort than racing. The body looked bigger and rounder than before, and the front had a unique square shape that made it stand out. It also came with small opera windows on the sides, just like the Thunderbird. Again, no one really knew why they were there, but they gave the car a richer look. You could still get a big V8 engine like the 440, so it wasn't slow, but most people didn't buy this car to race. They bought it to look cool at the gas station or roll up to the diner with pride. It had that smooth 70s style that turned heads without trying too hard. Fun fact, even though people joked about the shape and the size, the Charger SE had a certain charm. It was the kind of car that looked like it belonged in a movie with big sunglasses, open shirts, and slow-motion walks. 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ. In the 1970s, personal luxury coupes were all the rage, and Pontiac's Grand Prix stood tall among the best. With its extra long hood and short rear, the shape was all about attitude. It looked like it belonged at the front of a red carpet line, not stuck in traffic. The SJ version was the top-of-the-line trim, and it didn't hold back. Under the hood, you could get a powerful 400 or 455 cubic inch V8, giving it plenty of muscle to back up its good looks. But this wasn't just a performance car, it was a rolling lounge with thick, cushy seats, real wood trim, and more chrome than a jukebox. Compared to the soft and stylish Lincoln Mark V, the Grand Prix brought a bit more heat and a little less fluff. It had style, power, and just the right amount of flash to turn heads without being too loud. Fun fact, this thing was so long you could probably fit a smart car between the front and rear bumpers. Seriously, it took up an entire driveway. But in the 70s, bigger was better, and the Grand Prix made sure you knew it. 1978 Chevrolet Monte Carlo Landau Coupe, the final beauty. And now, we reached the end of our journey with a car that truly captured the heart and soul of 70s American style. The 1978 Chevrolet Monte Carlo Landau Coupe wasn't the fastest or flashiest car on the list, but it may have been the coolest. This Monte Carlo came with T-tops, two-tone paint, and more vinyl than a furniture store on clearance. The Landau package added a padded roof, extra trim, and little details that made the whole car feel like it belonged in a music video, or maybe parked outside a roller rink with the radio playing Earth, Wind & Fire. It wasn't built for speed like the Trans Am SD455, and it wasn't huge like the Imperial LeBaron, but it didn't need to be. This car was built to cruise, to vibe, and to make sure you looked good doing it. The ride was smooth, the seats were soft, and the windows rolled down just right for leaning out, and waving at your friends. Fun fact, this was one of the last true personal coupes of the decade before the 80s downsizing kicked in. It marked the end of an era when cars weren't just built to get you somewhere, they were built to say something. And what did the 78 Monte Carlo say? It said, "I'm here, I look good, and I don't need a race. I already won." And there you have it. 12 forgotten beauties from the 1970s that once ruled America's highways with style and swagger. These weren't just cars, they were statements. Which one's your favorite? Did your dad or grandpa have one of these back in the day? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that bell for more vintage car magic. Until next time, keep your chrome shiny and your gas pedal heavy.